Okay, welcome everyone. This is Premier Chess Adult Beginner. April, this is the spring semester, and this is week 9. And by request, we're going to examine the opera game, classic Paul Morphy game. I saw in some places where this is considered like the most famous chess game. I mean, there's quite a few chess games that have that title, the most famous chess game. So I don't know if we can say that, but it's pretty famous nevertheless.
Can I ask a
Um,
quick question?
Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
There's a chess game called the Immortal game.
Yes. There's actually many chess games called the Immortal Game, and I have like a whole. I like compile a bunch of these games into one study, and I done like lectures on each one. Like there's a Polish Immortal Game. There's the Wintergreen Immortal Game. There's like so many, right? Different people like then they say this is Magnus Carlsen's Immortal Game. This is Viswanathan Anand's Immortal Game. So um yeah, I mean, if you want to go over some of those are
No,
amazing
no,
games as
no,
well.
no. I thought there was only one. I was going to ask you which there
No,
were. So forget I
no.
asked.
What do you think? This is easy. This is simple. Chess is not. You think chess makes it simple? No way. So there's many immortal games, and those are also really wonderful to look at. I really enjoy that because it shows the real beauty and art that chess can become. Right. It's not just about logic and taking pieces and moving pieces, but it's like especially when you have two masters that go head to head on the chessboard. It often yields a work of art, right? So can be marveled at quite well. So first of all, who is Paul Morphy? So can anybody does anybody know who Paul Morphy is? Any ideas?
Know he has like a really famous book that always pops up on my Amazon recommendations.
He has a book. I don't think he wrote a book. What book is that?
Famous game, Morphe's. Maybe he didn't write a book. Maybe
Okay,
it's
maybe somebody wrote the book about him. Okay, okay. Anybody else? Anything more specific about Paul Morphy?
I know it. Like he was a really good player, and he was really young, kind of a natural.
Yeah. Leonard, you were gonna say?
Well, I know he's an American chess player that was around before the World Championships.
Yeah.
So he was considered essentially the world champion of that era because he virtually beat everybody.
Yeah. He was considered the first unofficial world champion before they actually had like world championship matches. And he was also considered a child prodigy, in the sense that he often would do simultaneous exhibitions with multiple players, multiple strong players, and win and beat many of them. And he was also excellent at blindfold chess. And I actually I've compiled a whole lecture of blindfold games, amazing blindfold games that have been played, and quite a few of them were played by Paul Morphy, right? So he was an amazing tactician, and he could he could see many different variations in his mind. So it's pretty amazing stuff. Playing blindfold chess is one thing, but then I'm not even sure if Paul Morphy did this, but there's people who can do multiple blindfold games. That just compounds the complexity. But yeah, so yeah, Paul Morphy, he was a child prodigy, grew up in New Orleans and lived around, in that area. And so he traveled the world. Like he was at his peak, like maybe 17 years old, 18 years old, 19, like around that age. And he was already considered the top chess player in the world, and he would travel around and play uh top chess players in different parts of the world and beat them. So that's kind of why he was given that title, the unofficial American world champion. But then after that, like 21, 22, I think he retired from chess, and I think he died like a very strange, obscure way. And I mean, there's speculation as to maybe chess drew him mad, but who knows? So yeah, so uh, here's a little description. Paul Morphy, born June 22nd, 1837, died 1884. So what's that? 47, 60, 30 something maybe? All right, something like that. Was an unofficial American world champion from 1858 to 1860. American chess genius Paul Morphy was taking Europe by storm, but as a guest of the Duke Karl of Brunswick to the opera that night, he was simply hoping to take in a good show. However, the Duke and his friend Count Usard had other plans. so yeah. All right. So let's see. Let's see this game. The opera game. All right. So E4 it's a very common opening in the 1800s. They're all about attacking. Usually it's F4. So if E4 follows, then F4, and what would that be considered? What's the name of that opening?
King's Gambit.
King's Gambit, yeah. And King's Gambit was very popular in the 19th century, partly because it was very attacking, very brilliant, sacrifices, and, just made a very exciting, violent game. And so that's what they liked. So that's what they most of them play was the King's Gambit. But this game is not the King's Gambit. So E4, E5. Go ahead.
Was Morphy white or black?
Oh, he was white. Yeah, he's white here. Okay, so E4, E5. So natural developing move, right? Knight F3 towards the center, immediately attacking the unprotected pawn, controlling D4. Okay, so D6 is kind of a strange move to protect the pawn. It kind of it's not really recommended, kind of a passive move because it blocks in this bishop on F8. So perhaps a better move. What do you think would be a better move that most people would play today? What do you guys think?
Knight F6, Knight C6.
Yeah, so Knight C6, right? And if we continue, let's say we continue this way, this would be the 4 knights game, right? Or could be, I think this is called the Italian opening, maybe here, right? Get the bishop out, maybe a very symmetrical game. That's something like the Italian opening. And then sometimes black decides to go knight F6. So this would be a counterattack, right? So knight attacks the pawn on E5, and black attacks the pawn on E4. This would be a counterattack. It's called the Petrov's defense. There's a little trick in here. Let me just go through this real quick. So if knight takes the pawn, and then black takes so white wins the pawn here. So black says, all right, I'm gonna win your pawn, right? Now this is a mistake. Why is this a mistake? I think I went over this with some of you before, but what do you think?
Queen
H5. No, Queen H5. Okay, so you are attacking here, threatening mate. Maybe he can just drop back something like this, and he's pretty safe. And yeah. So what else? There's a stronger move than Queen H5 here. Anybody can see? How do we punish knight takes E4?
Pawn E3, pawn D3.
Okay, pawn D3, king kicking back to knight. Not really a punishment. I mean, you are forcing the knight back, but there's actually a much stronger move than even that. What do you think?
Knight takes F7.
Knight takes F7. All right, that's interesting. So let's go into this line. This is a very interesting line. We're going to a little side variation here. But okay, so if the king takes, that's actually not a good move either. Why is that not a good move?
Well, he can't castle anymore, and he's exposed.
Okay, he's exposed, but white just sacrificed a knight. So what's the best move here? What do you think?
Queen F3.
Queen. Well, if you go Queen F3, you are forking queen and king and knight, but black can just block. All right. So what's a stronger move here than Queen F3?
Queen H5.
Good. Queen H5. Yeah. So here, the natural move for black would be what? What would you say the natural move would be?
G6.
G6. Yeah. Blocking and attacking the queen. Definitely a natural move. And now what's a good move here for white?
Queen
D5.
Queen D5 check. Yeah. So this very nicely picks up the knight. This knight, unprotected knight, just hanging out here. And now it's a check. So now maybe what is he going to do? Maybe he comes G7 and we take the knight. So now look at the resulting position is that white is now, so white got his sacrificed knight back, and he's a pawn up, and also the king is kind of weak. You know, maybe black can fianchetto this one and just start attacking him on the long diagonal. Bring in the other bishop here, castle. So yeah, so it's a nice little variation. All right, so let's go back. Okay. Okay. So, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So not knight takes f7. Okay, kind of a good move. There's actually a stronger move. I think there's a stronger move here. The knight takes f7.
Bishop c5.
Okay, bishop
C4.
c5. Okay, c4 attacking f7. Okay, that's easily parried with d5, blocking and attacking the bishop. So what else? Anybody else see anything?
Queen to d2
Queen to e2.
or e2. Sorry.
Good, good. Queen to e2 is the powerful move, right? So now this queen not only is attacking the knight, but now setting up some kind of dangerous discovery on the black king, right? So now if the knight says, okay, I'm just going to move back, now what's the best move for white here?
I've fallen for this knight to c6.
Yeah, this is a pretty
Yeah.
common opening mistake. Knight
Fallen for it more
c6.
than once. Yeah.
Yeah, knight c6 check, discovered check, attacking the queen, and there's no way that you can save the queen. Queen e7, and you still lose your queen like that, right? So that's a very common mistake in the Petros defense. Okay, let's go back. All right, so yeah, those are all different suitable second moves for black. So in the game, black to d6. All right, so this is called the Philidor's defense after a famous player, Andre Philidor, the strongest player in the 18th century. All right. Yeah, so it's not really recommended because it blocks a piece and it doesn't develop any other piece, right? So, okay, let's go on. So d4. So remember, Morphy was known for his attacking and dynamic style. So he immediately strikes at the black center. Now he's again threatening to win the pawn on e5. Okay, so now bishop g4. So instead of taking the pawn or protecting the pawn, he prefers to pin the knight and kind of save his pawn that way. Okay, so now he goes d takes e5. So now what would you play? What do you think would be a good move for black here? What do you think would be a good move for black? What should black do here? So the obvious move is to recapture the pawn, right? So what do you think? Good move? So as we can see, you recapture the pawn, you open up the d file. Now the queens are staring at each other. Now what can white do here? What's the best move for white?
This is where I normally trade queens and force somebody that's not very experienced to not be able to castle, and that tends to help a lot.
Yeah, so in this case, that would be a good idea. Why? Because take, and now your knight's no longer pinned. Now you take here. Now you're attacking the bishop, unprotected bishop, and threatening a fork on f7. So that's a pretty good move, right? So definitely that would put black in a very inferior position, right? So he doesn't want to take immediately on e5 with the, or recapture with the pawn. So first he captures the knight, right? Remove the protector. Bishop takes f3. Queen takes f3. Now he recaptures. Okay, so now, going with the principle of developing with tempo, what do you think Morphy did next? Develop with tempo. Oh, by the way, do you all know what that means? Develop with tempo? Anybody not know what that means? Okay.
You make a move that develops your piece, but also forces your opponent to react to that, which prevents him from developing as probably you want it to.
Good, good. So you're developing and attacking simultaneously, right? So you're achieving two goals, and in doing so, you're preventing your opponent from developing himself, right? So it's a very useful way to develop if you can do that. So here, Morphy developed with tempo. What do you think he did? Developed and attacked.
Bishop c4.
Bishop c4. What does that threaten?
Checkmate.
Mate on f7, right. Queen and bishop helper mate on f7. Immediately, right? So very nice, very efficient, okay? And now, so knight f6, blocking. All right, so they don't recommend knight f6, but okay, so what if, I'll give you a little sample puzzle, but okay, it shows the answer here. So yeah, so knight h6 to protect f7 is definitely a bad move. Why?
Bishop times h6.
Right. Just remove the defender, and black doesn't have a chance to recapture because now the mate threat is resumed, right? So much better is knight f6, or also you can also maybe go queen here, right? That might have been even better, even stronger. Now black is wants to trade queens, and if he does, then the attack would definitely be neutralized, right? So okay, so bishop c4. Knight f6. Okay, now continue the attack. Remember, Morphy is all about attack. So what do you think best move here for white?
Bishop g5.
Bishop g5. All right, so the pin's the knight. I mean, it doesn't really threaten anything or attack anything. I mean, now maybe black can develop, and now he's ready to castle and get out of the center. So yeah, there's a stronger move than bishop g5. What do you think?
I think I'm remembering the. Well, I know this isn't fair because I remember the game, but queen to b3.
That's all right. That's all right. So yeah. So there's a principle in the opening that Morphy is violating by moving the queen here, which is don't move your pieces twice in the opening, right? Not recommended. Why? Why is it not recommended to move your piece twice in the opening?
Cuts down on your ability to develop your pieces.
Right. So the opening, right, I always say is like a race, right? It's a race against time. You know, it's a race how fast you can develop your pieces, get them onto productive squares, get your king castled, and then whoever pieces basically are on better, more active squares usually is the victor, right? So if you're moving the same piece twice, you're basically wasting time, right? So Paul Morphy chose to move his queen to f3, and then he moved it here to b3. But it's for good reason. Why? Because now he's got a dual threat, right? He's threatening to take the pawn on f7 as well as the pawn on b7, right? So double threat. So pretty good reason to violate that rule. Okay, so black went queen e7. So there's really no way that black can protect both pawns. So he chooses queen f7, and so it seems like queen b7, queen takes b7 is the obvious move, right? There's a free pawn here, but of course, you know, whenever you look at a puzzle or a master game, the obvious move is rarely the move that is played. So Morphy played knight c3. Why did he play knight c3? Why do you think he didn't take this pawn? So here the rook appears like it's lost, right? But it's not lost. How does black save his rook?
Queen to b4.
Queen b4, yeah. So queen b4, check, and attacking the unprotected queen. White would be forced to capture, trade queens, and there's no more attack. And true, white is ahead of pawn, but he's still going to have to struggle to realize the victory. It's not going to be easy, right? And here, the description to this move, description to knight c3 is that an intriguing decision. Morphy passes on a clean pawn. Yes, queen takes b7 would have netted a pawn for free, but Morphy was a great lover of the initiative and grinding out a victory after queen b4, queen takes b4, bishop takes b4, did not appeal to his romantic chess instincts. This move reminds us that sometimes it's better to develop your piece than to go after a pawn. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of pawn hunting in the opening, not always such a good idea. You know, one, because you're neglecting development of other pieces for pawn, and that's kind of why I say in chess, greed is punished, right? This is one example where greed is punished. You lose the initiative, sometimes even worse than just losing the initiative. Like sometimes people, you know, especially, you know, beginners, they take the queen out and they take, oh, I'm going to take this pawn, I'm going to take this pawn, I'm going to take this, and their queen's off here in no man's land, and then their king is, what happened to the king? The king's all undefended, and that's no good, right? So be cognizant of your own the safety of your king and developing your pieces and getting your king to safety. Then go pawn hunting, right? Then it's usually a safe idea, but yeah, not usually a good idea to do it, you know, so early, right? The idea of a poisoned pawn too. That's the other idea that often happens in some openings where a pawn appears free, but then you take it and there is immediate punishment. All right, so knight c3. So then he defends his b pawn with c6. Now the queen defends the b pawn. All right, now bishop g5. So look how active Morphy's pieces are. It's pretty amazing. So the queen and bishop are putting pressure on f7. Knight towards the center, right, protecting his pawn and controlling d5. And now he develops his last piece to bishop g5, which is very nice. Now this knight is pinned, right? So he's just being really annoying, right? It's very effective. Every move has purpose. Every move has reason, right? So that's how you want to play. So the description to this one is methodically bringing another piece into play, pinning the f6 knight. White develops the last minor piece. Black is in what looks like a zugzwang position. He can't develop the queen's knight because the pawn will be behind. Yeah, so if the queen's knight develops to d7, that cuts off the protection from the queen, and now we can grab the pawn. So yeah, so White's moves are so simple and straightforward and effective that Black is almost in zugzwang. What is zugzwang again?
There's no decent move.
Right. He's slowly putting Black into a bind. Right? He's just his pieces are getting all clumped up and cluttered, right? Look at this bishop. First of all, he's blocking in his own f8 bishop, right? So, and this knight can't develop to a nice square here. So yeah, and now this knight is pinned. so Black is not so happy. All right. So now Black tries to get some counterplay or increase the space with b5. So the description for this is gasping for air. The Duke and the Count venture this pawn advance in order to push Morphy backwards. If White moves the bishop back on c4, let's say he plays bishop d3. Now Black can play knight to d7, and yeah. All right. So what do you think Paul Morphy did in this position?
Did he castle?
Castle. I mean, you lose the bishop. I mean, I don't think there's that much compensation for just sacrificing the bishop like that. Yeah, there's not much compensation here for that. So let me ask you guys a question. Now that you know that Morphy is all about attack and initiative and having, every move having purpose and being powerful, do you think he just cowardly ran? Bishop D3 or Bishop E2? Does that seem like a Morphy-esque type of move? I don't think so. So his move is, he's like, you want to push my bishop away? He says, no, definitely not. Take that pawn, sacrifice his knight for 2 pawns. So now he opens up this beautiful diagonal for the king. Now the king is under siege. So this is like nonstop attack, right? Nonstop attack on the king. He's not letting his opponent breathe whatsoever. Okay, let's see. So it says white gives black no respite. Black's king side is blocked. The bishop on f8 and the rook on h8 cannot get out. In the meantime, black's queen side is opened up, leaving the king exposed. All right, so knight b to d7. Black develops a knight, defends the check, hoping to shield the king to some degree. Black's king has no pawn center. White's rooks are poised to join. Okay, so that would be the best move. Obviously, king d8 would be a horrible move. Why would that be a horrible move? What would be the best move for white here? What do you think? Moving the king like that.
So then he could castle queenside.
Exactly, castle queenside again with tempo, right? Castling with tempo. Now you check again. Black's king is just embarrassed right here. So yeah, no good. So yeah, best move is knight b to d7, and he still castles again. This is, you can say this is still with tempo, right? Because now we're attacking this knight. So this knight is the d7 knight is pinned to the king. The f6 knight is pinned to the queen. The f8 bishop is blocked. The h8 rook is blocked. So in just a few moves, he's almost out of good moves, right? So castle queenside, another multi-purpose move. White whisks his king away. To safety, contributes his queenside rook to the attacking cause. Note that Morphy is not in a hurry to capture on d7, right? This is another great principle. Which is, whenever you see the option to capture a piece, don't always do it. Why? Because when you don't capture, when you maintain the pressure, you are maintaining tension, right? And a lot of players just crack under tension and pressure. So instead of just, because so black, another way to describe it is black has very little space, right? And so black would love to trade pieces, right? White has so much space here, so trading would just neutralize his own attack. So why would he trade, right? So just maintain the tension, and black is in a bind completely. So Morphy's not in a hurry to capture on d7, as he realizes that his bishop on b5 exerts an uncomfortable pin on his opponent. Always try to maximize your pin and pile in a pin piece if possible. All right, good. All right, so now he goes rook d8 to add more protection to his knight. The noblemen are feeling the heat. White was threatening to capture. Yeah. So here the threat was capturing immediately on d7 because the knight cannot come back due to the pin from the g5 bishop, right? So rook d8 was kind of forced. Okay, so now what do you think Paul Morphy did here? White to move. What do you think? Any ideas?
Queen a4.
Queen a4. Let's see. Okay, so that's good in the sense that now you are increasing pressure, right? You guys remember the mnemonic I always say with regarding pins? You got to put PP on the PP, right? Put pressure on the pin piece. D7, pin piece, very powerful. F6, if you can put more pressure there, that'd be great, but you can't. But D7, you definitely can, right? So this would be 3 pieces, bishop, queen, and rook, right? Amazing amount of pressure. Look at this king. It's all boxed up here, completely ridiculous and absurd. And white is just dominating here, right? So queen A7 is good for that reason. And that probably would also lead to a win. I mean, maybe here you're giving black a chance to breathe a little bit. Maybe he can break the pin here. Yeah, he could break the pin here with the with queen e6. But then probably you could probably do a similar combination here. So the idea is that if you take on d7, the knight can recapture. So why don't you just take the knight here, and now pawn takes, and now okay, how would you win here? How would white win here? So now currently, black's doing okay, right? He's got 3 protectors of d7. Black has and white has 3 attackers on d7. So currently he's doing okay, but there's kind of a way. Yeah, let's see.
Bishop to d7.
Bishop to d7. So okay, so well, that would just lead to a bunch of trades. Yeah, so what I was looking at rook takes d7. Okay, so now rook takes, and then you bring the other rook into the attack with tempo, right? However, I just noticed also the problem is black can just block that rook, so might not be as strong in this continuation. So, all right, let's go back. So, for that reason, queen a4, not the strongest. So what else do you think white did here? Not queen a4, but also pretty powerful and strong.
I didn't want to say anything because I kind of remembered it, but I thought it was rook to d7.
Yeah, rook d7. Yeah. So this is a very useful technique, right? So the only piece in white's camp that's not contributing to the attack is the rook on h1, right? How do you get the rook on h1 into the attack? Now, one way you can do that, you can double the rooks, rook d2, rook h to d1, and now you double the rooks. However, that's kind of slow, and maybe in that time, black can reorganize his pieces and get out of this bind. So Morphy doesn't even want to let him breathe for 1 second, right? So for that reason, this is a very common theme. There's an exchange sacrifice where a rook exchanges itself for a knight or a bishop, and then we'll see. So rook takes d7. Of course, knight takes or queen takes, we just lose the queen, right? If knight takes, you lose the queen to the bishop on g5. So the rook must recapture. And now what do we do?
Rook at h to d1.
Yeah, now we bring the last piece into the attack. You see, every move has purpose. Every move is an attacking move. Pretty amazing here. So rook d1, and now he's threatening to take here, either bishop or rook, and win the queen, right? Because this knight is pinned. So yeah, pretty devastating position here for black. So rook d1 says now this knight on d7 is gone. Black's position is even weaker. So what does white do now? Answer simple. Continue the attack. The most obvious target is the rook on d7, which now is currently pinned and helpless. White's kingside rook is the only piece not yet participating in the battle. So Morphy centralizes and hammers d7 once more. Impressive coordination. Okay, so now black responds by unpinning this knight. So queen to d7, queen to e6. So there's a few ways that you can win this actually. Yeah, there's not just one way. So all right, so what do you think? Best move for white here? Oh, let me just read the description of this move, queen e6. Black is currently up a rook, but he can barely move a muscle. Note the effectiveness of the blocked-in bishop on f8 and the bystanding rook on h8, which are doing absolutely nothing. The duke and the count attempt to ease the pressure by means of queen trade. So yeah, queen trade would definitely take the sting out of the attack a lot. So do you think Morphy traded queens? Probably not. So what did Morphy
Rook
do here?
d7.
Okay, rook d7. Let's see here. If rook d7, I would say that. Let's see.
No.
Yeah, I would say he would take here. Actually, take the
Mm.
queen, because yeah, what are you gonna do? And then if you take back here, knight takes, and now it's actually Morphy that's losing because black is ahead an entire rook. So you got to be careful with that. All right, what else? A little bit stronger than rook takes d7. What do you think? Any ideas? Strong move for white.
I think it starts with the queen trade for white.
Okay, if we trade queens,
Pawn, and then take the bishop takes knight.
yeah. So that's probably a way that you can win as well. Actually, no. I wouldn't say that. I'd say this is probably a draw, because now we have rook and bishop versus rook and bishop.
But then if you, I guess,
So now it's it's black to move, and maybe he just goes here, bishop e7, and now what are you gonna do? I mean, you can't win this pawn, I guess. Rook check, rook takes a7 check, king comes here, and now I mean, yeah, white will win. This is white's ahead 3 pawns, so he will win, but it's not as exciting as what he actually did, which pretty much made it go down in history, this game. So what else? So think of the most forceful move in chess, which is what?
Bishop d7.
Yeah, bishop takes d7. Very nice. So attacking the king and the queen. So black took with the knight, but which leads to a forced checkmate. So that's why queen takes d7 would have been better, losing his queen. And now, I mean, white's going to win again, but it's just going to take some time. But instead, he held on to his queen stubbornly against the unofficial world champion. He took with the knight. And what did Paul Morphy do here?
Queen B8.
Yeah, queen b8, stunning queen sacrifice. This is a mate in 2 position. Queen b8. So he sacrificed so many pieces for this attack, right? He sacrificed a knight on b5. He sacrificed the exchange of the rook on d7. And then now he's sacrificing his queen. So many sacrifices. And then what makes this game so beautiful is that with his very last 2 pieces, he achieves checkmate with his very last 2 pieces. Pretty amazing. So it says beautiful finish to a game. Morphy delivers checkmate with his 2 remaining pieces. This game is a brilliant demonstration of optimal opening play, coordination of forces in the attack. In just 17 moves, Morphy committed all his pieces to the struggle and created a sacrificial masterpiece. Wow, pretty amazing. So that is the opera game. So let's just go over some I got some puzzles here. Okay, so here, no, not this one. All right, so yeah, actually, you know what, this type of mate, I didn't realize, I didn't know, but now this type of mate with the rook and bishop combination like this pattern is considered the opera mate. I didn't even know that. So it was named after Paul Morphy after this game. Pretty amazing. All right, so okay, so here, this is just a little variation of what could have happened in the game. Let's say he castled queenside. So this is mate in 2. So what do you think? Where's the mate in 2 in this game? In this position?
Bishop to a6, then queen to b7.
Very good. Bishop a6. Yeah, so the rook is controlling the entire d file, right? So the king cannot venture there. So all we need is a nice queen check on b7, and it's mate, right? Completely cut off. So all these are covered by the queen. All right, good. All right, so this one, what do you think? Best move here, white to move? What's the best move here?
Bishop to f7.
Bishop to f7, very good. So you're forking the king and queen, but why would you do that, right? Because the queen can just take the bishop. Do you see the follow-up after that? So bishop takes f7, forces queen takes f7, and what's the follow-up?
Queen to f7.
No, if you take the queen, now you're just trading queens, and now white just won a bishop. So yeah, so bishop takes f7 is the correct answer. So what's the better move much better than taking the queen? Anybody see it?
Rook to d8.
Rook d8. What's the name of this this sacrifice? Anybody know the name? That type of sacrifice?
I thought it was just luring. No.
Yeah, you could say luring. The specific name would be the deflection or deflective sacrifice. We're deflecting the king, which is protecting the queen, away from protection of the queen, and so also what it's demonstrating is that the king is overworked, right? So rook d8 just challenges the king along the back rank and says, you know, you're overworked. You can't defend d8 and f7 at the same time. So rook d8 demonstrates that. Now the queen is free, right? So very nice winning of the queen. Good. So what about this one? Actually, we went over this one. If we went knight h6, right? Bishop takes, right? And now, yeah. All right, good. All right, let's see another one. Okay, here. Okay, so this is a kind of another puzzle along the similar theme of the opera style mate. So this is black to move. So what do you think the best move here is? Maybe I'll turn around there. Black to move.
Bishop C7 or C7 or C2.
Bishop. Oh, here. Bishop takes
Yeah.
C2. Okay, so I guess you're threatening mate here, right? On F1. Okay, you are threatening the queen, but it's not strong enough because bishop takes C2, and now the queen can just take the queen. Actually, the queen is free. The queen's not even protected, so that's just losing the queen. So yeah. Okay, anything else? Best move for black here.
The queen F1.
Queen F1 check. So why are you giving away the queen? King takes F1. What's the follow up?
With a double check on bishop to D3.
Bishop D3 check. King back to E1, and now what?
Oh. Then rook to F1.
Excellent, very good. So again, this is another type of sacrifice. This would be more like a decoy, right? We're decoying the king onto, or luring the king onto F1 in line with the rook and the bishop, and so the bishop moves with a very powerful double check, right? So discovered checks are powerful in themselves, right? But double checks are even more powerful. Like why are double checks even more powerful than just a simple check?
Capture doesn't stop the check.
Right. So since we're being checked, white is being checked by two pieces simultaneously. Even though this bishop can be captured in two ways, the bishop is immune, right? Because since there's two checks. And the same thing with blocking or protecting your king, you can't do that either because you're still in check by the other piece. So the only recourse white has is to move the king to E1, and then we have the beautiful opera mate on rook F1, right? So yeah, very nice. All right, so what about this one? What about this one?
White to move.
Yeah, white to move. Sorry, white to move. Yeah, what do you think?
Queen to G4.
Queen to G4.
Oh
All
no.
right.
Never mind. Yeah.
Well, the knight cannot take, right? Because the knight is pinned.
Right, I didn't see the queen there. Yeah.
Yeah. The queen can just capture and
Yeah.
trade queens. So yeah, stronger move than that. What do you think?
Queen takes E5.
Okay, so queen takes E5, D takes E5. Now what do you do?
Bishop takes.
Bishop takes. Good. Now F6 is forced. So now, all right, I'll make the moves. Getting tough. Queen takes, D takes, bishop takes, F6 is forced. Okay, now continue. What's the best move here?
Knight or rook to D8.
Rook to, you mean here? Rook G8?
Oh, no.
No, yeah.
to G8. Check.
Okay, so rook G8, check, rook takes, and now what?
Takes F6.
Bishop takes, now the rook blocks. Yeah. So stronger, a little bit, yeah, better than that. What else? You're kind of close.
Bishop to F6.
Say again?
Bishop to F6.
Yeah, bishop takes F6, right? So now, there's two ways he can respond. Queen G7, bishop takes G7 is mate, right? This bishop is controlling G8. And then, or what if the rook takes?
Then rook to G.
Now rook G8 mate, right? The upper mate. So again, we can say that this would be kind of like a deflective sacrifice, right? The rook must stay on the 8th rank to defend against mate on G8. And so bishop F3 forces the rook off of the 8th rank, deflecting it away, delivering a mate on G8. Very good. All right, good. Okay, so here, all right, so here's a very, very interesting combination here. So let's just go through this game. So black has just carelessly snatched a pawn with his queen, returned white unleashed an amazing combination. All right, let's see. Knight takes E6, so opening up the rook there. Also, this pawn is pinned, right? So what if the queen takes? If the queen takes, we have bishop C4, attacking the queen, also skewering this pawn. And if the pawn takes, we have rook H to E1. Now the queen is won. The queen is lost here. So yeah, it's a pretty nice move. And if the queen takes, now the king is very much exposed. Again, we bring the rook here, and it's not going to be good. If he goes bishop E2, he just gives up his bishop. He can't block with that. He's going to give up his bishop. Can't block with the knight. Going to give up the knight. So yeah. All right. So he goes. So he doesn't take the knight. He goes G6. G6. So now we have knight C7 check. Now that forces the queen to take because the king has no escape square at all. So the queen is forced to take. All right. And now we have, now the queen comes back to E2 check. All right. So now, what do you think the best move is for black here? He doesn't have many best moves. I mean, he doesn't have many good moves at all. So black only has about 4 different responses here, right? King cannot move. We have bishop E7. We have knight E5, queen E5, and bishop E4, right? So bishop E7, what do you think? Good move or bad move? Immediate mate. Mate on E7, okay? Bishop E4 just delays the inevitable. Queen takes with check. All right, so now what if queen here? What's the best move for white here?
Queen takes queen.
Yeah, take the queen. Again, if bishop E7, queen takes E7 is mate. So knight takes, and now best move for white.
Upper mate on D8.
Yeah, upper mate on D8. Rook D8 is mate. Very nice. And if if the knight were to block, what do you think would be the best move here?
Queen E5.
Yeah, sacrifice the queen, definitely. So this queen, the queen on C7 must protect D8 because that would be mate, right? So the queen again is overworked, protecting the mate on D8 as well as protecting the knight on E5. So queen takes E5 challenges that overworked queen. So the queen takes. We got mate again on D8. So really, the only way that that black can forestall mate would be giving up the queen on with queen E7. Then you take, and then maybe take the rook. And yeah, so it's not mate, but white's definitely winning. So yeah, so nice upper mate there. All right, so you guys know what the upper mate is now. Hopefully you guys can employ that in your own games. Yeah, bishop and rook are pretty you know, they what do you call it? They coordinate well together in these kinds of situations. So, is there any questions, by the way, with any of that we went over? Is that clear? Hopefully, it's clear. Is there any requests, by the way, for next week? I mean, I could continue along the theme of doing more Morphy games. He's played some pretty awesome. What do you guys think? Any requests, or should I just pick out of my hat?
The game of the century.
Ooh, game of the century, Bobby Fischer. That's the one, Bobby Fischer versus Donald Byrne, I believe, right? Did I go over with you, Greg or Monty? Do you remember I went over the game of the century with you guys before? Do you remember that?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Say-
I've definitely seen it a few times.
You said I mentioned it a few times?
No, I don't remember if it was you, but I've definitely seen somebody talk about it.
Okay. All right, cool. We can do the game of the century. That's a great idea. All right, cool. Well, good to see you all today, and I'll see you guys in a week.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks for another great class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
you.
Have a
Bye.
great night. Take
Bye.
care.